What if I told you that some boxers stepped into the ring, never knowing it would be their last fight? From Patrick Day's tragic brain injury in 2019 to Brad Rone collapsing mid-fight due to cardiac arrest, here are 20 boxers who died live in the boxing ring. First, Patrick Day. Patrick Day was not only a boxer, but also one of his generation's most committed boxers. He was born in Freeport, New York, 1992, and began boxing as a teenager. Early on, he demonstrated great promise, becoming a New York Golden Gloves champion. He was even chosen as an alternate for the 2012 U.S. Olympic team. When he decided to go professional, he gained a reputation as a clever, intelligent fighter who never shirked a fight. On October 12, 2019, Day entered the ring for a bout against Charles Conwell. It was to be another move up in his career, another challenge to his ability. The bout was close, but by the later rounds, Conwell began landing more powerful punches. In the 10th round, Conwell landed a strong combination that knocked Day to the canvas. He did not rise. Medical personnel rushed into the ring. Day was unconscious. He was rushed to the hospital, where physicians found that he had a traumatic brain injury. His brain had become so swollen that he required emergency surgery. For 4 days, he lay in a coma, struggling to survive. But on October 16, 2019, Patrick Day passed away at the age of only 27. Charles Conwell, his foe, was gravely upset. He wrote a note to Day's family afterwards, stating that he never meant to hurt anybody in the ring. Fighters know there are risks, yet nobody anticipates witnessing their opponent die. Second, Maxim Dadashev. Maxim Dadashev was one of those boxers whose life was ended too soon in the most unfortunate manner. Born in Russia in 1990, he had an impressive amateur background before going professional. He fought with an aggressive style and displayed unbelievable stamina. Most people felt that he was destined to be a world champion. On July 19, 2019, he battled Subriel Matias in a highly touted fight. The bout was vicious. Both fighters traded brutal punches, but Matias took over gradually. Dadashev continued to pressure, not willing to quit, but the toll was mounting. By the 11th round, his trainer, Buddy McGirt, had had enough. He made the tough call to end the fight. He knew Dadashev was in trouble, even if the fighter himself did not. Dadashev exited the ring with assistance, but he didn't get far. Walking backstage, he fell. He was taken to the hospital, where doctors found that he had experienced extreme swelling of the brain. Like Patrick Day, he required emergency surgery. For 4 days, he struggled to remain alive. But on July 23, 2019, at the age of 28, Maxim Dadashev passed away. His trainer was heartbroken. McGirt went on later to say that he ended the fight to save his fighter, but it was not enough. Dadashev had suffered too much damage. His passing was another reminder of how brutal boxing can be. He was a gritty, skilled boxer with so much potential, but in one evening, it all disappeared. Tercero, Hugo Alfredo Santillan. Hugo Alfredo Santillan was a promising Argentine boxer. He was born into a fighting family, worked hard in training, and hoped to make a name for himself in the sport. He boxed in the lightweight and super lightweight classes, demonstrating potential with his toughness and determination. On July 20, 2019, Santillan went up against Eduardo Javier Abreu in the battle that would transform his life. The contest was 10 rounds long, and as the final bell sounded, he remained there, expecting the outcome. But it wasn't right. His body trembled and his breathing was heavy. He lay motionless moments after the judges rendered their decision. Medical personnel ran to him, and he was rushed to the hospital immediately. Physicians discovered that he had experienced extreme brain swelling from the punches he received during the fight. He was operated on immediately, but the extent of the damage was too serious. On July 25, 2019, at the young age of 23, Santillan passed away. His untimely demise stunned the world of boxing. He had entered the ring alive and full of hope, but he never exited. Say. Kim Do-koo. Kim Do-koo was a gritty and aggressive South Korean fighter. He was born into poverty, fighting for fame, but also to provide for his family. His efforts were rewarded with a title bout against the renowned Ray Mancini on November 13, 1982. It was the largest bout of his career, but also the last. The battle was vicious. Both fighters exchanged powerful punches, but Mancini gradually took over. In the 14th round, he delivered a crushing combination that knocked Kim to the canvas. He attempted to rise, but his body would not cooperate. Shortly afterwards, he fell into a coma. Kim was taken to the hospital, where physicians found that he had endured extreme brain damage. Surgery was conducted, but it was in vain. Kim Do-koo passed away on November 17, 1982. His passing away stunned the world of boxing. Fans, fighters, and officials were appalled. Consequently, significant rule reforms were implemented in boxing. The number of rounds in title fights was lowered from 15 to 12 to enhance fighter safety. Kim's senseless demise became one of the most iconic moments in the history of boxing. Femte Benny Paré. Benny Kid. Parrott was a Cuban brawler with an iron chin and an aggressive fighting style. He was a welterweight champion, a fighter who never retreated from a battle. His feud with Emil Griffith was one of the greatest in boxing history, but it concluded in the worst possible manner. On March 24, 1962, Griffith and Parrott fought for the third time. Their earlier battles had been brutal, but this one became a nightmare. Parrott was notorious for insulting his opponents, and before this bout, he had personally insulted Griffith. When the bell sounded, both men came out swinging. The bout was a close one, but in the 12th round, Griffith launched a vicious assault. He threw dozens of unanswered punches, pinning Parrott against the ropes. The referee was too slow to stop the bout. Parrott fell to the canvas, unconscious. He was rushed to the hospital, but he had experienced catastrophic brain damage. He remained in a coma for 10 days, unable to wake up. On April 3, 1962, Benny Parrott passed away. Some people blamed the referee for not halting the fight earlier. Others criticized the sport itself. Parrott was a fantastic fighter, but boxing took his life in the end. 6. Davey Moore. Davey Moore was an American boxer who was famous for his speed, power, and punching ability. He was a world featherweight champion and one of the toughest fighters of his generation. But on March 21, 1963, his life and career ended in tragedy. That evening, Moore retained his title against Cuban brawler Sugar Ramos. The bout was furious, with both men exchanging heavy blows. But in the 10th round, Ramos connected with a heavy combination that dropped Moore into the ropes. His head jerked back violently, but he was able to rise and complete the fight. Moore remained on his feet when the last bell sounded, but there was something amiss. He walked to his dressing room and then collapsed out of the blue. He was taken to the hospital, where doctors discovered he had a brainstem injury. The damage was irreparable. For the following 2 days, Moore was unconscious. Then, on March 23, 1963, at the age of only 29, he passed away. His passing shocked the boxing world. Though he wasn't knocked out during the fight, the effects of that last blow and years of punishment in the ring had finally caught up with him. His demise created controversy regarding boxing safety. Some even called for boxing to be outlawed, but it did not end. 7. Johnny Owen. Johnny Owen was a Welsh-British boxer who possessed an incredible amount of endurance and unbreakable willpower. Fans had christened him the Merthyr Matchstick due to his slenderness, but in the ring, he was one of the toughest of them all. Owen brawled his way through the rankings, finally getting a title shot at WBC bantamweight champion Lupe Pintor on September 19, 1980. It was his largest bout to date, but nobody had any idea that it would be his final bout. The battle began with Owen outboxing Pintor using his speed and agility. But as the rounds progressed, Pintor's power began to tell. In the 12th round, Pintor sent a crushing right hand that knocked Owen cold onto the canvas. Owen never came around. He was rushed to hospital, where the doctors discovered that he had a severe brain injury. He spent 7 weeks in a coma, but his body could not recover. Johnny Owen passed away on November 4, 1980, at the age of 24. His passing shocked his hometown in Wales. Owen was not only a boxer, he was a local hero, an unassuming and diligent fighter who left everything on the line in the ring. Actensta Randy Carver. Randy Carver was a talented American boxer who boxed with heart and determination. He was born in Kansas City and dreamed of being a world champion. With his unbeaten record and good work ethic, most thought he had a bright future in boxing. Carver entered the ring on September 12, 1999, to face Kabari Salem. It was meant to be another move toward more prominent fights, but that evening disaster struck. The battle was tough, with both men trading punches. But as the rounds progressed, Carver began to take more of a beating. In the 10th round, he just fell over in the ring. He had been punched too many times, and his brain was no longer able to cope with the damage. Carver was taken to the hospital, where physicians discovered that he had experienced extreme brain swelling. He was put into a coma, but his wounds were too extreme. Only 2 days later, on September 14, 1999, Randy Carver passed away at the age of 24. 9. Bathavian, Scotland. Bathavian, Scotland was a hard-nosed and gritty boxer who always left everything he had in the ring. He was not the best-known fighter, but everyone who saw him was aware that he possessed a fighter's heart. His dream was to become a name in the sport he cherished, and on June 26, 2001, he was given a chance to demonstrate himself on a national level. That evening, Scotland was matched against George Kala Jones in a light heavyweight bout. It was a tough battle, but Jones gained the upper hand gradually. During the 10th round, Scotland was struck by a combination of punches that put him on the canvas. He never rose from it. Scotland was taken to the hospital, where doctors found that he had experienced a critical brain injury. He was in a coma for 6 days, struggling to survive. But on July 1, 2001, at the age of 26, Bathavian, Scotland passed away. 10. Rimsky Simakov. Roman Simakov was one of Russia's up-and-coming boxing stars. He had the punch, the finesse, and a bright future lying ahead of him. Few expected anything else than for him to become the top fighter in his weight division. But everything went wrong for Simakov on the night of December 5, 2011. Simakov faced Sergey Kovalev, a hard-hitting puncher who would eventually become a world champion. The battle was fierce, but Kovalev's power was too much. Throughout the rounds, Simakov was hit hard, but he would not quit. During the 7th round, Kovalev delivered a series of brutal punches. Simakov fell to the ring and lost consciousness. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors found him suffering from severe swelling of the brain. Simakov spent 3 days in a coma. The doctors did all they could, but his wounds were too serious. Roman Simakov passed away on December 8, 2011, at the age of 27. His passing sent shockwaves in the boxing world. Kovalev, the man who battled him that evening, was greatly troubled by what occurred. He later dedicated one of his title bouts to Simakov's memory, demonstrating just how much the tragedy affected him. Once. Daniel Aguillon. Daniel Aguillon was a Mexican boxer who was very talented, hailing from a country that has some of the hardest fighters in the world. Aguillon wanted to become a champion, and like other Mexican boxers before him, he was not afraid to risk everything to fulfill that aspiration. On October 15, 2008, Aguillon entered the ring for what would prove to be his last bout. He was fighting Omar Chavez, the son of the great Mexican boxer Julio Cesar Chavez. It was a high-profile fight for Aguillon, and he was determined to make an impression. The battle was fierce, with both men exchanging punches. But in the 12th round, Aguillon was caught with a crushing punch. He fell in the ring and never came to. Doctors attended to him and took him to the hospital, where they found that he had sustained serious head trauma. Despite their treatment, Aguillon's condition deteriorated. On October 17, 2008, 2 days after the bout, Daniel Aguillon passed away. Doce, Pedro Alcázar. Pedro Alcázar was a young star from Panama who had great talent and drive. He was a super flyweight world champion, and everyone thought he had a long and fruitful career in front of him. On June 22, 2002, Alcázar entered the ring to fight for his title against Fernando Montiel, a hard Mexican opponent. The fight was fierce, but Montiel was the superior fighter. During round 6, he unleashed a chain of savage blows that caused the referee to put an end to the fight. Alcázar lost the title, but he was healthy after the battle. He passed his post-fight examination and carried out his evening plans as usual. But the following day, something went awry. When preparing to depart Las Vegas, Alcázar collapsed unexpectedly. He was taken to the hospital, where doctors found that he had severe brain trauma from the altercation. No matter what they did, he couldn't be saved. Pedro Alcázar was only 24 years old. His passing was surprising because he did not pass away immediately following the bout, unlike the majority of boxers who receive deadly blows. 13th, Yosam Choi. Yosam Choi was a brilliant South Korean boxer renowned for his phenomenal speed and fighting spirit. He had once held the title of WBC light flyweight champion, and even in his advanced years, he kept getting into the ring, showing that he still had it in him to fight at a high level. On December 25, 2007, Choi battled Heriberto Ruiz in what would be his last fight. Though the fight was tough, Choi emerged victorious, again demonstrating why he was such a respected fighter. But almost as soon as the last bell rang, disaster befell him. When the referee raised the hand of Choi in victory, he suddenly fainted in the ring. Medical staff rushed into the ring in shock as the crowd watched. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors found that he had incurred massive brain damage due to the bout. He went into a coma and, despite all efforts to revive him, passed away on January 2, 2008. Choi's demise hit the boxing world hard. The fact that he had won the fight made it even more heartbreaking. He had fought his heart out, only to pay the ultimate price. His tragic passing led to discussions about fighter safety in South Korea, as many questioned whether better medical precautions could have saved him. 14. Carlos Adames. Carlos Adames was a Dominican boxer with aspirations to make a name for himself. He was fast, strong, and had an appetite to prove himself in the ring. Yet, instead of being a champion, he became another tragic name on the roll of fighters who perished doing what they loved. On November 5, 2001, Adames battled San Juan Berganza in what would prove to be his last fight. The bout was savage, with both fighters exchanging powerful punches. As the rounds progressed, Adames began to tire, but he would not give up. Then came the knockout punch. Berganza delivered a crushing blow that sent Adames crashing to the mat. He never rose again. Physicians ran into the ring attempting to resuscitate him, but it was too late. He was lifeless a short while later, his wounds too critical to survive. Adams's demise was a haunting reminder of just how rapidly everything can turn wrong in the world of boxing. 1 minute, a fighter is toe-to-toe with an opponent. The next, he is lifeless. 15. Jimmy Doyle. Jimmy Doyle was a young and promising boxer who aimed to become a champion. He possessed speed, agility, and the drive to prove himself in the boxing ring. But on June 24, 1947, his life was abruptly ended in a battle against one of the greatest boxers in history, Sugar Ray Robinson. Robinson was a legend in his own right, with his spectacular footwork and crushing punches. Doyle, who was the underdog, entered the ring confident that he would be able to pull off the upset. The bout was a fierce one, with both fighters trading punches, but Robinson's power proved to be too much. During the 8th round, Robinson gave Doyle a crushing blow that put him on the canvas. Doyle never regained consciousness. Rushed to the hospital, Doyle passed away the following day from a brutal brain injury. His passing away shocked the boxing world. Robinson himself was traumatized, subsequently admitting that he had a premonition in the form of a dream before the bout that he would assassinate Doyle inside the ring. He even attempted to call off the bout, but promoters urged him to proceed. Following Doyle's demise, Robinson gave his earnings to Doyle's family, indicating his grief over the loss. 16. Frankie Campbell. Frankie Campbell was a tough heavyweight boxer. On August 25, 1930, he fought Max Baer, a hard-hitting puncher who would go on to win the world heavyweight title. The bout began in much the same manner as any other and had both men exchanging heavy punches. Campbell once knocked Baer down, but the referee called it a slip. It seemed to put fire in Baer's belly as he returned with non-stop aggression. He began delivering crushing punches, and Campbell didn't know what to do about it. In the 5th round, Baer fired a succession of savage punches that had Campbell hanging over the ropes. The fight was eventually halted, but too late. Campbell was out cold and never regained consciousness. He was taken to hospital, but the doctors were unable to save him. The autopsy later confirmed that his brain had been dislodged from his skull, a gruesome and unusual injury that was fatal. His demise transformed Baer's life forever. Although he went on to box and became renowned for his knockout punches, he was never the same emotionally. Campbell's passing away also brought about reforms in the rules of boxing, with greater emphasis on medical watch and more rapid stoppages to save pugilists. 17. Luther McCarty. Luther McCarty was a young, talented heavyweight boxer who most people thought would become one of the sport's largest stars. He was tall, powerful, and talented, and everyone considered him the future of boxing. His life and career, however, came to a close in the most unexpected way. On May 24, 1913, McCarty entered the ring to face Arthur Pelkey in Calgary, Canada. Barely a second into the battle, McCarty collapsed in round 1. At first, he was assumed to have been knocked out, but when he refused to move, the crowd quieted. Physicians came in, but they were too late. McCarty passed away immediately in the ring, leaving everybody stunned. Later, it was found that he had a life-threatening neck injury, which could have been the result of multiple punches and a previously undetected medical condition. At the age of 21, he was already seen as a future champion, one who might have dominated the heavyweight division. Instead of glory, however, his life ended in tragedy. 18. Ed Sanders. Ed Sanders was a phenomenal boxer with a bright future. Born in 1930, he was a force to be reckoned with in the ring, due to his strength and ability. His finest moment arrived in the 1952 Olympics, when he was awarded a gold medal in the heavyweight category for the United States. With his natural ability and willpower, most people thought that he would be one of the biggest stars in professional boxing. Following his Olympic triumph, Sanders went pro and was determined to leave his footprint in the heavyweight ranks. He possessed power, speed, and a champion's attitude. On December 12, 1954, though, while in the ring facing Willie James, his life and career were abruptly cut short. The fight was fierce, with each combatant taking heavy punches. But in round 11, Sanders was brutalized with a series of punches. He fell into the ring, unconscious. The audience was in stunned silence as medical professionals rushed to his aid. Sanders was rushed to the hospital, but the injury was too extensive. He passed away from head trauma at age 25. His demise shocked the world of boxing. Sanders had become an Olympic hero and then a tragic statistic in 2 years. His passing away brought to the forefront the risks of boxing, particularly in the heavyweight division, where the punches pack such devastating force. Despite his brief career, Sanders left behind a legacy as being among the few Olympic gold medalists whose life got prematurely cut short in the ring. 19, Angelo Jacopucci. Angelo Jacopucci was an Italian boxer who was hard and talented. He was born in 1946 and worked his way up through the ranks, becoming known as a solid middleweight contender. He possessed power in each hand and was a puncher who could take a punch, which made him a thrilling fighter to observe. On July 19, 1978, Jacopucci battled Alan Minter, an up-and-coming English fighter. It was a savage fight, with both fighters exchanging hard punches. Jacopucci absorbed a lot of punishment but kept coming, refusing to lose. But in the later rounds, Minter's punches became too much. At the end of the fight, Jacopucci was badly injured, but still on his feet. Moments after the last bell sounded, Jacopucci fell in his dressing room. He was taken to the hospital directly, but the damage was too extensive. He had experienced a brain hemorrhage, and though doctors worked to save him, he passed away the following day. His demise was another wake-up call for the boxing world. The sport was already dangerous, but Jacopucci's passing showed that even fighters who made it to the end of a match could still suffer fatal consequences. His loss was deeply felt in Italy, where he was seen as a national talent with great potential. Yermi, Brad Rone. Boxing is a sport of heart, talent, and resolve. Each of the fighters that gets in the ring understands the risks, but for others, those risks become tragic. Brad Rone was such a fighter, a man who loved to box even though he experienced more losses than victories. His tale is tragic because he never gave up, even when things were against him. Born in 1968, Brad Rone was no world champion, but a fighter who was respected by boxers everywhere as a relentless fighter who would never back down from a bout. His career was marked with ups and downs, more the latter since he lost so many of his bouts. But he never gave up, always willing to lace on his gloves for the next fight. On July 18, 2003, Rone entered the ring in Utah once again to fight. But this time, this was his final fight. As he was fighting, he continued to take punches as always and displayed his strength. But suddenly, he collapsed during the fight. The referee and medical personnel attended to him immediately, but all efforts were in vain. Rone had endured a fatal cardiac arrest within the ring itself. What was so tragic about his demise was that he had battled that evening to make money for his ailing mother. He didn't enter the ring for glory or fame. He did it because he loved his family. Brad Rone might not have been a world champion, but his hard work and determination made him rememberable for the sport. His life is an example of a boxer who never quit, even when life pushed him around.